Well, hi there.
Good evening.
I had a little misadventure. I was out of sync with the broadcast. They were still raging in that same circumstance when the rest of the world was seeing the "Please Stand By" slide. I don't know how that happened, but
Well,
anyway,
here we are now in real time. Can you
that's
hear
right.
me?
And I just
Oh,
have to get
good.
my headphones on properly because I have the wrong devices on. Hold on. It's that kind of day, you know. What can I say, kids?
All right.
Uh,
Well, that's how
Other
you
than
can
that,
tell
Mrs.
this is
Lincoln.
you can tell this is live because we're messing it up. Okay
That's
then.
okay. It's live
Yeah.
television or whatever they call this medium anymore. Well, another swell first set, ladies and gentlemen. Man, oh man. Uh, they keep taking these tunes I thought I'd heard everything done with over the course of 50 some years and keep finding new things to do with them. Uh,
Yeah. It's it's been fun. It's kind of we ran out of superlatives a week or two ago, and we've just been recycling the same tired phrases. These guys are magnificent. We don't know if they could possibly take it up any higher. Oh my God, they just took it up a little higher. It's
mhm.
sort of it's an impossible job commentating on this, I must say.
Yeah, you just have to grin and bear it, as I guess. That's all we can do.
Well,
It's a rough job, but somebody's got to do it.
I'm delighted with the song selection tonight. Mississippi Half Step, Here Comes Sunshine, Next Time You See Me, Loose Lucy, Friend of the Devil, They Love Each Other 75 style, and
Yes.
Lost Sailor and Saint of Circumstance to end it. I was a real fan of Lost Sailor, and I mourned its disappearance from the Grateful Dead repertoire lo these many years ago. So I really am happy to hear it done again, and that suite restored to its magnificence, Lost Sailor and Saint of Circumstance, and delivered by this band. I've got my wife and two friends here. We're just enjoying the hell out of this show over here on Nugsnet, and particularly everybody's just in love with O'Teal. He seems to be in a good mood all the time, and he's dancing along and he's playing just beautiful stuff.
Man, tonight it a lot of it has been all about O'Teal for me. The bass lines have
Yeah.
just been endlessly inventive and swinging and funky and whatever they needed to be at the moment and then some. Man, there's only one weekend left of this stuff, and I'm getting a little verklempt about that. Uh,
Yeah.
but let's enjoy it while we can. And you can enjoy this on nugs.net because they are bringing this to you in splendid audio and video. And you can revisit this. If you are watching this on the free preview, you can go back and watch the whole show. If this is the first show on the tour you're seeing, you can go back and watch the whole tour. All this music is available to stream live or after the fact. And then just after the show happens, the shows become available for audio streaming and download.
Yeah.
This is amazing. This is the thing we've been dreaming of for years, you
That's
know.
so true.
Yeah, and here it is available to us, and you can go to nugs.net and find out how you can avail yourself of this almost the entire history of Dead and Company, at least going back to 2016, plus much archival music from all over the Grateful Dead family and its inheritors and all that. A lot of great jam band stuff. People like Bruce Springsteen, people like Wilco, stuff from Austin City Limits. I saw Buck Owens not long ago on
Wow,
nugs.net.
excellent.
It's
Yeah.
fantastic stuff in an immense library, all dedicated to live music. I think we may be a little pressed for time again tonight because they played a pretty long first set.
All
So
right.
we advise you, as always, to go to nugs.net. You can get a free trial and dip a toe in, and then you'll take the plunge. Believe me,
All
you'll
right.
take the plunge.
You will, because the sound mix, I mean, I'm telling you, I've been couch touring this entire tour and the sound quality is spectacular. We've invested in good speakers here in my house and they're getting what they deserve and we're getting what we deserve through those speakers. But I suppose we should move on to our interview. Tonight, we are talking with Hawk from the Owsley Stanley Foundation.
And when you hear the name Owsley Stanley, you may think of one thing, but this is about that other thing. So we hope you will enjoy it. Hawk's a terrific guy, and he's so invested in Owsley's legacy of recording great music and preserving that music. So we're going to give you that interview. We will not be back after that. We will go right back to the stage. And then the next time we see you, things won't be the same because Dead and Company will be in San Francisco, the hometown, and I'll be in San Francisco too. So I'm
All
really
right,
looking forward to
Lambert.
next weekend. So enjoy yourselves, enjoy the rest of the show, and we'll be talking to you next weekend. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Dead Air is very, very happy to welcome the Owsley Stanley Foundation back to our traffic here in the person of Hawk, one of the main producers of this thing. Welcome and thank you for the amazing stuff you're doing getting Owsley's audio archive out into the world.
Thank you, David. It's great to be here. Good to see you, Gary.
Hey, Hawk.
And let's talk about that shirt you're wearing because we noticed during the Dead and Company tour that shirt in a lovely orange sunshine color has been sported by Jay Lane a couple of times, and we saw Mickey Hart wearing an Owsley Stanley Foundation shirt as well. So please tell us about the shirts because I think some of our viewers are going to be wanting to get hold of those shirts.
Sure. Yeah, no, it was
I know I am.
That can be arranged for sure. Yeah, no, it was amazing to see those guys wear our shirts. The reason we made the shirts is one of the things that Owsley was most proud of was being a defined term in the Oxford English Dictionary. If you look Owsley up in the OED, it means Owsley, noun, slang, historical U.S., an extremely potent, high quality type of LSD, a tablet of this, frequently attributive, especially as quote Owsley acid. And so we made these shirts in purple haze, orange sunshine, and blue cheer. The back says Sonic and Psychedelic Innovation since 1965, honoring both of Owsley's contributions that are quite well known. But of course, our mission is not so much focused on the LSD. In fact, it's not focused on that at all. We're dedicated to preserving Owsley's legacy as reflected in his legendary archive of tapes, the recordings he made as a sound man for the Grateful Dead and others that are of tremendously high quality. And the tapes themselves are nearing the end of their shelf life. So we've been dedicated to preserving them and getting them out to the world.
And I gather from the conversation we had before we went live here that you've done a pretty thorough job of getting those tapes digitized. You started an Adopt a Reel program some years back, asking people to contribute enough to get one particular reel restored and baked and cleaned up and all the other stuff that needed to happen to it. And you're coming close to completion on that phase? Say more.
Yeah, absolutely. We are now, looking at my notes, I've just evaluated reel 1016. We have estimated that there are 1,300 reels. And I've got at least one more tranche in queue from another session. So we're well over 1,000. All of the mystery reels have been preserved by an Adopt a Reel challenge, which was amazing. A patron said, hey, we've got all these mystery reels. They're not the most sexy thing in the world to preserve because nobody knows what's on them until they get preserved. So I'll do a match for every dollar raised on the mystery reel challenge is what we called it. Wow. We raised enough money in 48 hours to preserve about 200 mystery reels. Wow. So that's going on in parallel.
Where is that? That's being announced on the OwsleyStanleyFoundation.org page? Because I'd like to follow that kind of thing. How can people get tapped in to find out what's going on and find ways to help?
Sure. Yeah, that particular challenge was posted on Facebook. That's where our more dynamic information comes across on a daily basis, is on social media. But we announced that and quickly pulled it down because we reached our goal in 48 hours. So
wonderful.
I don't want one penny more than I need to mission. And I think that's what makes it such a wonderful community effort. You talked about the Adopt a Reel program. Patrons are still sponsoring reels, even though they understand that we're down to the last 100 or so. So the pickings are slim. There's still a significant amount of Grateful Dead to preserve, because that was the largest chunk of a single artist within the archive. And what's been great to see is that Rhino and the Grateful Dead have really sort of promoted and appreciate the community aspect of this. And we tell patrons that we'll do our best to get liner notes credit if any of the material that they help to preserve actually makes it into a release. And now we have, obviously that's the case with all of our releases, where we focus on the other 80 artists that Owsley recorded. But it was great to see the Grateful Dead include Adopt a Real Patron names in the liner notes to Dave's Picks 43. I think listen to the River box set, and then most recently in Here Comes Sunshine, two patrons preserved the reels from the RFK shows.
That's fantastic. You know, one thing that really delighted me was to find out. I mean, we knew about Bear recording the Grateful Dead extensively and exhaustively for all those years he was around them. But I only found out maybe in the early 2000s that, you know, when he recorded the Grateful Dead, he would also record the support acts. And when he was at the Carousel Ballroom, he would record other bands when there was no Grateful Dead there. He was just the guy who was documenting like everything that was happening in that scene. And David Lemieux at one point showed me a shelf in the Grateful Dead vault. I said, "Oh yeah, these are Bears tapes," and there was so much non-Grateful Dead stuff and so many treasures. And we are now seeing that bounty, you know, coming out, and it's fantastic.
And when we look at the list of releases, it's insane. The variety of stuff that's coming out. We've got South Asian music, we've got country music, we've got Grateful Dead. I mean, he was, and these are referred to as Bear's Sonic Journals. He had a stated reason for doing them that was separate from the obsessive fans that are going to be eating this music, you know, so eagerly in the years to come. He was just documenting his own work, kind of, right?
Exactly. He called them his Sonic Journals. They were like his notes in his notebook to see how he did as a sound man each night, and he would listen to them, and then he'd put them away and perhaps consult them when he was going back to a same venue to see, well, what I do right, what I do wrong the last time. And similarly, if he had sway over a band like Grateful Dead or sometimes Jefferson Airplane, he would try to have them listen as well. And Jerry Garcia referred to it as the evening post-mortem. And you know, I was pleased to hear we talked to Dave Schools, who did a section of the liner notes for Johnny Cash, and he said that he was surprised to see Mickey, when he traveled with Mickey's band, still listens to the tapes after the shows. So it's a beautiful tradition. That's why he did it. And interesting to note also, you know, people always ask us, well, why can't you just share the music? Why can't you just put it out there, click send, and put it out in the universe? And you have to understand that Owsley had access to these musicians. It was like a sacred trust. They knew that he wasn't going to commercially exploit it because he had his own mission to become a better soundman. So we have a moral imperative that Owsley set down for us to release no music without the artist or their estate's approval. And so
It's also illegal to do that. I mean, it's bootlegging, you know. You can't really put somebody else's intellectual property out. So you're doing this legit. Well, you're a lawyer. You understand this.
Yes, it's a little bit more complicated than that. But the reality is, copyright law aside, we simply will not release something without artist approval.
Right.
That's great.
And that makes the process take long.
Well, Bear was a person with a real personal code in every way, you know. And one thing that always startled me about his recordings, I mean, he was a guy who like learned this on the fly, sort of taught himself, you know, how to record. And one really telling sign is the first Old and in the Way album when it came out on Round Records. I had listened to a fair amount of bluegrass at that point, and I was startled by how authentically like a bluegrass record it sounded. You know, live albums often get worried over and excessively polished, and there's an input for like every string on every guitar. And bluegrass was always like a very bare bones kind of thing. You know, several guys gathered around one mic and all that.
Yeah.
And the sound of those shows at the boarding house was really the sound of bluegrass. It didn't sound like hippies playing bluegrass, and the recording technique and the mic placement and all of that has something to do with it. And Bear was very, very diligent about that.
Absolutely. And he was so dialed in at that particular venue. I mean, you talk about the whole reason for the Sonic Journals. That was a venue that he had mastered. And you listen to the Chieftains release, Old and in the Way, and the Doc Watson release, all recorded at the boarding house. And you can hear how the room affects the sound. Obviously, the mic placement is a huge part of it. But we view those as a trilogy of exquisite sound quality that really, really tells the story.
Well, this is one of the lessons that Bear can teach every recordist who's come along after him. He knew His idea was to minimize the distance and the interference between the music and the tape. And the shortest distance, you put the mics in the right place, you don't have to fuck with it beyond that. You don't have to do this and that. You don't have to mix it later. He knew where to put those mics. And that was part of his ongoing process, was refining his comprehension of how to put the mics, how to record music in space. He understood
Yeah.
the three-dimensional nature of this in an important way.
Yeah, constructive bleed, I think is what he called it. So that you're not overloading any microphone with too much information that will cancel itself out. And again, I'm not a sound engineer, but I've come to have a great and deep appreciation for his technique, and also Betty Cantor's technique. I mean, she's excellent as well, and a different set of ears will result in a different set of recordings, but they were both fantastic, both stunning. And
We're finding that out actually right
Yeah.
now. The new Here Comes Sunshine box has recordings made by Bear, recordings made by Betty, and recordings made by kids. So we get, and they were all made in the same time frame. So we get to hear the subtle differences among the three recordists' techniques.
Yeah, no, and we talked to Betty about, well, what's the difference between your tapes and Bear's tapes, and she says they're very, very consistent in the way they viewed space, but just a little bit difference in terms of, she referred to it as lightness and darkness, and the way the lightness and darkness in the sound sort of play out, and that's her palette to work with. And it was just it was tremendous to talk to her about that, and we obviously admire her work greatly. Yeah. So, and talk about live concert performances. I remember Zakir Hussain on your show, Tales of the Golden Road, talking about how all live Indian classical music should be recorded the way Bear recorded Ali Akbar Khan at the Family Dog. The feedback that we've had from that release in particular sort of bears that out.
Yeah, that's an extraordinary recording. And I think I'm going to be adopting the phrase constructive bleed in my everyday life. From now on, it sounds like the name of a punk band, but it's really, it's a great term, because there are albums that have a sterility to them because they're so obsessive about keeping everything isolated so it can be fixed in the mix. And Bear understood that getting the whole atmosphere was, really what brought the magic out.
And getting it right the first time too, because when you're recording direct to stereo, you don't have the option of remixing later. So you got to get it right the first time.
Yeah.
Now, the Owsley Stanley Foundation exists, and it's accessible, and people can go to your website. But you say most of the traffic happens on the Facebook page. But if people want to follow this stuff and want to contribute, how can they? Like, if I wanted to adopt a reel, how would I do that?
Sure. Go to our website, owsleystanleyfoundation.org. Scroll down to the bottom of the first page, and there'll be a donations place for the Adopt a Reel program. I can click on that, and then a message will pop up in my inbox, and I'll reach out to you, and we'll work on finding a good match. But again, there's only about 100 left. So.
Well, let's talk about those, the mystery reels. Those were just boxes with no writing on them, and you are finding out. Have you found out what's on any of them? Have there been any big surprises in there yet that you could talk about?
No, I mean, the mysteries remain true mysteries, and that's where Dennis. I heard Dennis McNally on your show, and he was talking about we should start a contest of some sort to identify the mystery reels. I mean, here's one that we just, reel 988. All it says on the box is Eddie, Bob, Fred, Doug, Apple, and Ron. And it's apparently a studio recording. It's quite good. I have no idea who it is. We've got another one that has 992, completely unknown. It's 3-part harmony rehearsal that sounds a little psychedelic to me, but I can't place the voices.
Wow.
We've got another one that's just labeled Hate Street Riot. I don't know if that rings a bell with either of you, but the singing is in Spanish, but whoever is singing announces between songs that he doesn't know any Spanish. So it's beautiful Spanish singing.
Wow.
So these are just some examples of what we find on mystery reels.
Let me, I started doing, a little bit cogitation. There was a harmonica player in the Bay Area named Applejack. So when I see that apple on there, I think of maybe Applejack. Is there any harmonica on that tape? Maybe that's a clue.
Yeah, no harmonica that I remembered, and none referenced in my notes. But
oh well.
So you're the guy that auditions all of these after they're transferred?
Yeah. So Jeffrey Norman does all of our transferring from Mockingbird Mastering. And then when we select them for release, they get transferred again through the plangent process. Jamie and John, and then they send them back to us. And Jeffrey does the mastering of our digital, and Paul Stubblebine does the mastering of our vinyl. And I love it because it's two different engineers, two different sets of ears, two different decision making, both brilliant, both handpicked by Bear. I mean, what a great sonic story that is.
Yeah, that's quite wonderful. Go ahead, Gary.
Well, one thing I want to say is you've had a presence at some of the Dead and Company shows, hence people getting the T-shirts and all that. What have your interactions been like? With Deadheads, are they completely fascinated by this stuff, or they have a lot of questions?
It's absolutely wonderful. And we've been on every Dead and Company tour since Fairly Well, having a presence at least a couple of shows every tour. And it's just like waves of that, as we are more well known and people have more releases to draw from, the interest continues to grow. And
Good.
Just the positive feedback that we get at Dead and Company shows and Peach Fest this weekend is unbelievable. I mean, that's the true reward in what we do. We're all volunteer. We do this because we are absolutely devoted to Bear's legacy, the tapes, the artists, and the music. And it's so great to continually meet like-minded people who share the same interest, who actually appreciate what we're doing, and let us know. And the other thing that I think I have to note is I am super impressed by the younger generation, Deadheads that weren't born when Jerry passed away, that are knowledgeable or just learning and come up with questions. And it's so great to watch. Like the young people will say, "Well, I don't know who Owsley is. Tell me about that." And there'll be some older folks standing back, sort of beaming. They want to jump in with the answer, but they know the answer, but they want to hear how this whole interaction is going to take place. And it's this incredible intergenerational experience at some of these shows, which is really wonderful. It's what it's all about. Keeping that torch lit, no jam left behind, that sort of thing.
I'd like to see that on a shirt too. We're starting to run out of time here, Hawk. Can I ask you a little bit about your own background, how you came to be part of this thing? Because you're an attorney doing important work in the bigger world, so I'm curious about how you became part of this.
Sure. I had met Bear, I guess, when I was in high school or maybe my freshman year in college, and we became workout buddies on East Coast tours. And we are always talking about. He obviously had an interesting diet, and I was always cutting weight for wrestling, and always working out. He was always working out. He was very into bodybuilding at the time, and so we had Gold's Gym membership cards, and we'd go lift, and then we'd go to the show, and then go back to hang out at the hotel. Occasionally, if we were lucky with the band, and on to the next show. And I brought my all my books with me from college. I do my homework backstage, mostly in the spring after wrestling season was over, and sit backstage and do my homework.
You were receiving an education you never could have imagined.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it was great fun. And,
That's great.
So, I guess to round the story out, in 1990, at some point, Bear had said, "Come up to Albany and meet my son Starfinder. I think you guys would get along." And he was right. And one of Bear's great gifts is being able to bring people together. You look at what he did with Alembic, and you look at the talent that he assembled to help Grateful Dead sound systems.
Yeah.
Some of the brightest minds in sonics in the Bay Area. And for whatever reason, he saw that Starfinder and I would be good friends, and Redbird as well. And we've been family for 30 years.
Fantastic.
That's a great thing.
Yeah, I guess we the time has run down. Is the foundation going to have a presence at the remaining shows on the tour? Or as we talk to you, these are going to air at the Gorge and San Francisco as well. You're going to be around?
We're hoping to be in San Francisco, but nothing is confirmed yet. So
okay.
we're optimistic.
But if you're there, it'll be on Participation Row with Headcount and all that stuff, right?
That's right. Yeah, Participation Row, Headcount, Reverb. Great friends of the foundation.
Great.
To sum up, go ahead, Gary.
Well, I'm just going to predict that sometime in the future, the OED will have a supplementary definition of Owsley for the sonic part of it, too. I think it's deserved.
I like it. So OwsleyStanleyFoundation.org. You can also find them on Facebook, and I'm going to figure out how to order one of those Owsley T-shirts right away because I like the orange sunshine color a lot. So thank you for being with us, Hawk. And now we got to go back to the stage where Dead and Company is fixing to play set 2.
Thank you guys. It's great to be here.
Thanks.